Okay, hello, happy Wednesday. Today's topic, of course, always excited, but it really came about because this conversation has come up amongst my clients a lot in this past week. And whenever I have something that I feel like I'm like, man, I wish I could have recorded my call from earlier with so and so and play it back for so and so. I'm like, that's probably a good sign that we could do a Zoom on it and it could be helpful. So, today's topic, I'm gonna, I saw it kind of in the realm of visiting family and then also partners. So I'm gonna try and combine the both, but there might be some stuff that will apply better towards a couple than it would a family member or a friend. But my hope is that we focus more on ourselves feeling comfortable to voice these needs more than the exact scenarios in which I'm going to talk about tonight. All right. So if you have a situation that is different than the ones that I map out, tell me in the chat, and then I can explain to you how I would go about doing, handling that. Okay. So, but what I'm going to talk about today is the more common ways that I see this happen. All right, let's get into it. So, communication, how to effectively communicate your hormone/chronic illness needs to your partner/loved ones and feel good about it. That being the key part of the whole phrase and feeling good about it. Okay. So, because I was typing it out and I'm like, what do I say? And don't feel like a pest and don't feel needy. I feel like there's so many feelings that can come from making your needs known that I feel like at the end of the day, as long you want to feel good about it, whatever it is. So that's what we're going to focus on. All right. Now, in general, telling people what we need or what we're feeling or anything like that can feel uncomfy, right? Put a one in the chat if you find it to be uncomfy to have to include people in on your chronic illness or hormonal BS. Put a one in the chat if you feel uncomfy having to include people. And we've all been there, you know? Um, what do you think if we were just, warming up and kicking off conversation? Tell me in the chat. What do you think some reasons would be that we would feel uncomfortable about letting people in? What are some of the things that can come up? People are dismissive. Yeah, absolutely. Like unless they go through it, they don't even know. So many questions, right? So then they start drilling you about it, like interrogation. What are some things that might make you feel uncomfy about sharing or including people in your journey? I remember personally feeling like people wouldn't believe me. I hated the whole like there's always something wrong with you stereotype, especially if it was like at work or, with friends, if I couldn't make it or anything like that. There's always something with you, I hated that. I always wanted to avoid that. Let's see, we get lecturing about in the chat. I'm reading here. Lecturing about what I should, quote unquote, should have or should be doing to take better care of myself. Oh yeah. We're always getting it wrong, right? They know best. And I'm literally not doing anything wrong. Exactly. Someone will always be a judge. And so Becca said makes me feel judged. The pressure to pick dinner because you have the special diet. Uh-huh. They make jokes about it or think I'm a hypochondriac or something. Absolutely. Oh, it's always you. It's always something. It's probably anxiety. That's my favorite one from like doctors and family and friends, all the above. So, of course, if we're going around feeling this, we're not going to feel great about making ourselves have to stand out and ask for any kind of accommodation. And I think the biggest thing to realize here throughout this entire Zoom, I want you to wonder, and I don't say this because it's like a trick thing, but I just want you guys to ponder this, right? Is that most of the time, the people we are afraid of being a pest to would not view us as the pest we feel we would be. Most of the time, people do not see us as the pest we feel we would be. Most of the time. There are of course people who, I mean, there's the reason that we feel uncomfortable including people, right? So of course we've usually had an encounter that's given us a sour taste towards including people. right? But most of the time, people are not thinking of us as like, oh my God, again, this bitch, like most of the time people would react probably how you would react, where you would be like, okay, if so and so has an issue, like let me accommodate that or consider that most of the time. Now, granted, that's also, I don't know, that's also because you live it. But all I'm saying is, I can't tell you how many couples I talk with, and it's like my client will be like, I can't mention blah, blah, blah. I feel bad. And their partner would absolutely not care whatsoever. They would actually be happy to know an exact answer as to what they could do to help. How many of you here have experienced that, where there's someone in your life that like literally would love to know how they're able to help us, but we still don't want to include them for some reason? So I want you to keep that in mind, that I'm going to talk about these scenarios, but a lot of it is just like what we're creating, this resistance we're afraid of having against us for voicing these concerns. Most of the time, it'll just be like, not an issue, you know? So, okay, let's get into it. Here are some of the main things that I have heard in my time doing this. Okay. So, number one, explaining invisible illness symptoms and what kind of impact that's having on you. So I've seen this a lot with people that I work with who feel bad for resting. And they have, family, maybe they grew up in a family where rest was really frowned upon. Maybe they grew up in a family where there was one person in the house that prided themselves on being very active and very on the go and very put together. And it's this source of comparison, where the person feels bad for resting. Maybe it's a partner, and it could be as simple as, hey, are you still sleeping? Why are you resting? Let's go out. Let's do something. So I think a lot of times, we try to hide, or at least I used to, try to hide how sick we're feeling, because you don't want to sit there and unload and sound like some kind of pity case about all these things you're feeling. Like, my back hurts, I'm exhausted, I'm cranky, I'm like, my head hurts, my joints hurt. Like, you don't want to seem that. I mean, like, a lot of us are really, we're young too. So you don't want to feel like old and crotchety, So explaining symptoms or explaining what you're feeling a lot of times can make people feel uncomfy. You're not even necessarily asking for anything. Anyone relate to this? Put a 1 in the chat if you relate to this part here, where even just explaining what you're going through makes you feel needy and you're not even asking for anything in particular. The idea of like complaining, not wanting to seem like a drag, not wanting to not seem fun or down for whatever, like all of those things. I mean, it's not like we feel them and we just want to come across like a pain in the ass. It sucks to not be able to do things and not feel well too, you know? So I'm seeing a bunch of 1s in the chat, and then I get the opposite of that. There's one up manship, and I've had it worse than you because, oh, okay, I get it. Sorry, it took me a second. There's one up manship. I get what you mean. And I've had it worse than you because I'm older / I'm sicker, etc. My favorite thing to say to that is, it's not a competition. Nobody's getting any medals. There's no trophy for who's the sickest one in the room. We can both be sick. I definitely have experienced that before. And, at the end of the day, they are worse off because that's the mindset they have. But it is for sure annoying. So when it comes to, or what, this could even apply to that too, because then you don't want to sit there and have it be like some intense ping pong match, like let's compare symptoms, because this person who's talking with you probably has absolutely no desire to hear what you go through. They've already made up their mind that they go through worse. So in that situation, it could feel really hard to be able to explain what it is you go through or anything like that. So I always like to ask people, okay, tell me in the chat now. We're going to do it together, right? Tell me in the chat. I want you to describe what your energy level, like what it feels like having a low energy level on a bad fatigue day. So type that out to me in the chat in your own words. I want you to describe what a low energy, high fatigue day, what does that feel like? Tell me in the chat. You're basically all going to say the same thing in a different way, and that's the point. So let's say, describe your energy and what it feels like on a low energy, high fatigue kind of day. I can't move from my bed or do any of the most basic things, even shower, right? Because what does it feel like? What is the reason you can't do that? Get really deep on that feeling. So much brain fog, want to lay in bed and read/doom scroll, clingy with my spouse, wanting mac and cheese. I mean, that sounds like a cozy evening in, but think about it in terms of feeling, like what does it feel like to be in that place in your body in that moment? Literally can't just wake up, everything feels heavy. Yeah, that's exactly it. It feels heavy. I'm going to speak to no one outside of work because why? What are you feeling? I always feel bad because like I never want to annoy people with this, but I am someone who would always describe the things happening that would make me feel the way that I would feel, but I would never actually say the feeling. So I like to let's break that down. If you're gonna cut off from the world, what are you feeling in that moment? It feels powerless and heavy and slow. I feel a lot of shame. Yeah. So why am I doing this? Why? Like, because this is like the ultimate mood killer, right? Heavy, bogged down, kind of cloudy on the inside. Exactly. The reason that I'm having you guys stop and think about what it is you're feeling is because sometimes we get so used to not ever wanting accommodations and not ever wanting to open up ourselves up that we gaslight ourselves out of really understanding how deep our symptoms go, especially if you live with these symptoms for a really long time. You have a job, you have roles you do, you kind of go and you follow the motions, and it's sometimes hard to remember just how burdensome these feelings, these symptoms are on us. So when it comes to including someone in our life to some small degree of like, hey, and we'll get into this further, but like, hey, I can't eat that without feeling like absolute garbage and feeling like these things that you're writing in that chat right now, the way you're describing it, it puts a lot more weight behind your request and you're wanting to include them in your life. It feels like more important when you stop and think about how bad these symptoms feel than just I'm trying to be a pain because I want to go to some bougie gluten-free place to eat dinner. That's not what it's about. That's never what it's about. What it is about is what's in that chat, is what you wrote. Because if your partner was writing those things and or your loved one, your friend, your good friend, your family member, and again, this is barring the awful ones, like I don't know a better way to say it, but like genuinely someone who like really cares about you and stuff, and you care about them, if the roles were reversed and they felt like how you guys are describing in the chat, you would not want to be a part of doing something that wouldn't help them feel better, right? You would not want to make them feel worse unintentionally because they didn't want to say anything. You would want to be included because why would you want to make them feel worse than they do? So I think it's important to remember that, and to really like put a spotlight on that so you're not just feeling like some pain in the ass. Because if you had it your way, you wouldn't need any of these accommodations. If you had it your way, you wouldn't feel like shit every day. So, it's not just some you just feel like being a pest kind of move. It's not attention seeking. It's none of the things that people who've never experienced what you experience might possibly have thought or said about you in the past. It's none of it. So you described that for me. Now I want, explain you can explain without complaining, right? So how would we make this apply to a situation? So you can just be matter of fact with people, right? Like, okay, why are you resting? I'm resting because my blood sugars are off and I need to rest. I'm resting because my thyroid is off and I need to rest. You don't have to sit there and be like, oh, I'm resting because, like I'm really like you don't have to be upset like feel bad that you need rest. You can just be matter of fact about what it is you're feeling, what it is you're experiencing, right? Why are you canceling plans? I'm canceling because blah, blah, blah. You don't have to apologize profusely. You don't have to come up with some big thing. You can just straight up put yourself first and be matter of fact about it. So, what did I write here? I don't know how I wrote this question. I'm going to ask it because maybe it'll make sense if I say it. I was kind of like just quick energy writing these notes because I was fresh off a couple calls. But what things do your loved ones unintentionally or intentionally say that make you feel not, make you don't, been a lot of calls today, guys. What things do your loved ones do or say that might make you not feel understood by them? Where you feel maybe hesitant to explain fully what you're going through. Again, intentional or not, like sometimes people just don't know. They don't know what they don't go through, right? But what things do your loved ones say unintentionally or how do they act that makes you feel like maybe you wouldn't be understood if you explain these things to them? This could be something from your past too. Like if you have ever experienced that, this could be really insightful too. You just have to force yourself to get up and move. Oh, I hear that all the time. Do you know how many of my clients have partners or parents who are, oh my God, what is it? Personal trainers or just like big gym enthusiasts, big nature people, and you just got to push yourself. Is that all? Like, is that all I have to? I hadn't thought of that. What else? What else? What are some things you've heard before from your loved ones that make you think maybe they wouldn't understand where I'm coming from? Dad on Thanksgiving claimed I didn't know what a senior dog was like. Your dog is 19. So just generally making you feel like you have no idea what you're talking about. So how could you possibly explain health to someone, right? You can do it, put your mind to it. The funny thing about my mind is, if we're talking about putting my mind in my body, I don't know. Don't lift/push that or you won't get pregnant. People's we My mother-in-law told me not to give into cravings because if I give into a craving, every craving I gave into would be a unsightly beauty mark potentially on my baby. And she's like, it's an old wives' tale, but it might be true. I heard all kinds of stuff over the years. Jesus. Don't have a gummy when you have a headache. What if you're pregnant? Just get pregnant already, whether or not you're married. People are so pushy with other people's reproduction. It's just very weird to me, you know? Gotta love first gen American things, you're told. Of course. Of course. It was like a countdown for the cousins, and the families of like who's gonna get pregnant next. My mom says a lot, where there's a will, there's a way. Oh my God, yeah. Yep, everything's like an inspirational t-shirt, honestly. For people who I would love, like, okay, I don't wish illness on people, most people, okay? I do wish they would have just like a little blip. Does anyone ever get like that? Where there's like certain people that you wish would like wake up with something like maybe a chronic illness they didn't expect. And like nothing like serious would happen to them. It would go back to like normal life the next day. But just like a little, like the movie, was it the Family Man, where he gets a vision of what like his family life would be like if he went back and married his college sweetheart. Like this would be your life if you woke up tomorrow with invisible illness and you couldn't just have a will and a way, you know? Just for like a day, nothing crazy. Um, was present for, well, you better hurry up and get me pregnant so I don't have to work for 9 months, less than 3 months after I had a loss, said it in my home in front of me. So just complete oblivious. So yeah, so these are people that you're like, I don't know that I'm gonna want to jump at the idea of sharing my illness with them, right? Another one will be, I hear a lot about weight, like partners will be like, well, why are you eating that? Don't eat that. Just eat this. Just do that. I can prepare your food for you. Like I hear that all the time. And at the end of the day, Or just eat less. Yeah, eat less, move more, the most famous of all, right? I heard get a Peloton. That's another one. So my point. My point to all of this is if you encounter someone who you really have been given a lot of evidence that they're not necessarily going to try and see your point of view, I do believe that there are some people that maybe shouldn't be included, but there is something you can say for yourself. And that is, if let's say they're pushing you, I really would like to not have a pregnancy conversation. I don't want to discuss it at all. Anyway, how are your kids doing? How is your job doing? How did you guys move? I saw you move, change the topic. You say what you need and you move on. Some things don't need the explanation. They don't need to know the symptoms you go through. You know, some people just need you to tell them what you need and you move on. That's your accessibility needs, is to have this conversation be over. If someone's like, where there's a will, there's a way, you can say, well, it's different for me, but I respect if you don't realize that. Your tone, just keep it level, I respect if you can't recognize the difference. Let's move on. And you change the topic. There will be people who do not want to easily change the topic. Make it uncomfortable enough to keep continuing to try. Because eventually, like, it's going to look weird if they don't just talk about something else. You know? To the people that you do want to share, like, let's say you have someone you're like, well, so and so has never given me any indication that they wouldn't understand where I'm coming from. I do feel safe telling them about it, but I don't want to have them think of me in that way or be needy or whatever, right? I see this in my clients who are in new relationships a lot. And I think the difference is explaining and saying, I have ways to take care of myself. And sometimes I will need extra rest. And sometimes I will eat a certain way. And that is how I take care of myself. I just wanted you to know if you see that. I have a way to take care of myself. You don't have to describe to them the depths of what you do, right? I'm now, years down the line, you guys are together, a married couple, whatever. Like, that's different if you want to include them more into the nitty gritty. But let's just say, so you're going from the people that you wouldn't even include, you're just going to tell them what you need and change the topic. You got the new relationship or people who you're trying to sort of test the waters of including. You want to tell them, but you don't want to necessarily give them a lot of emotion, right? I have a way of taking care of myself. You might see me doing that. I might need rest. I might need certain food accommodations, and that's what I'm doing. Just a heads up. And then you move it on down, and then you can get, you have someone that you're close with, and you could say, I'm really, really not feeling well today, and I'm struggling to take care of myself, so I have to cancel. Let's make it up and make a new plan next week because I miss you. Something like that. I want you to notice my energy and how I'm replying. The energy and how I'm replying is not, I feel so bad. Like sometimes people will respond like, you didn't run over their dog. You just don't feel well and can't go hang out, So, and this is said as someone with trauma who used to respond to everyone like I just ran over their dog in front of them. But there's something to just remember that, you can include people in, but if you want to get more into your symptoms, you just be like, I really don't feel well. I have a huge headache. I just got my period. I can't move. You can tell them that and include them. And then we move it on down the line. We start to get into food. So that was telling them about symptoms and stuff. And now we've moved into, I need dietary accommodations, which I think a lot more people feel. I don't want to generalize for people. I personally think it's a harder one because I think if you're talking about your illness symptoms, that's one thing. But then you're factoring in body image, you're factoring in any kind of preconceived fat phobia you may be encountering if you haven't, if you're of a certain size societally. You're factoring in giving people permission potentially to make comments on your food or tell you what you should be doing. So I think that's when we start to get a little bit more anxiety ridden and including people. Put a 1 in the chat if you would agree. It's far more daunting to include people in your food than it is even in your illness. Because now you're opening up to what you eat and being a real pain in the ass, right? I'm air quoting to anyone listening to the recording. So this is an interesting one. And this is going to be one of those that I think will have nuance. So if you listen to this, again, if it doesn't fully apply to you, let's use it as fodder for our one-on-one. Okay. But in general, I'm going to talk about what I commonly see. So here's the thing. Nick and I are a package deal. So when it comes to, and this should be the case to have your own back. If you're single, even better. Sorry, babe, but like even one less person to have to think to include, right? But in general, we're not going to go to a place that I can't eat at. Just like we wouldn't go to a place that Nick couldn't eat at. Like I would not want to dine at a place that I know the only other option is that Nick's illness gets triggered or he ends up having symptoms, especially if he was in a coaching program and invested in a coaching program and we had a set of goals that we both shared. I wouldn't want to force Nick into that situation either. And knowing that, he probably doesn't want to force me into that. When I hear people feel bad about changing the plans for like places to go out to eat, that's a really common one. I always like to remind them of that, to be like, chances are, if you tell them like, hey, I don't really have too many options there, chances are they wouldn't want to eat there, you know? Like if they're signing up to go have a dinner for four provided by Wolfgang Puck himself, like, okay, I understand. I get it. You know, that's different. But if it's like an Italian joint that he wants to go to for dinner for his birthday, like there's not an Italian joint that maybe has grilled chicken available or, you know, can make something without flour. You know, so my point is not that you have to like control every bit, but the point is also don't assume that they wouldn't want to work on finding a place that accommodates you too. And that goes for friends. You know, like if you tell your friends, like first of all, if it's close friends, share with them what you're doing. Share with them and say, you know, hey, I'm working with a coach and I have certain dietary restrictions that we're trying out because we're trying to get everything, you know, in order. I'm trying to get my health in check. So they already know that, right? When it comes time to pick a restaurant, if there's not an option that you can eat anything at, would you want your good friend if they had like a peanut allergy? Would you be like, hey, let's go to Five Guys where they're literally eating peanuts and throwing, you know, do they still do that? Where they like eat the peanuts in the restaurant? Like you wouldn't, you know what I mean? You wouldn't be like, oh God, her and her peanut allergy. Now you might be thinking, but like, what if a peanut allergy like that's deadly, right? And like I'll live if I have some of this. You're absolutely correct in that. But again, I remind you to go back and think about how you described a low energy day. And remember that you have a job, that you have a home to maintain, like you have things that are still required from you of you, even if you feel that way. And then ask yourself if anyone would care if you found something with more options. If you find yourself in a friend group where they refuse to accommodate you whatsoever, the problem ain't the food. And I know that's a different conversation for a different day, but like, I don't want you feeling bad if you're surrounded by people who don't understand accommodations for chronic illness. You're in a bad crowd. You're not a bad person because you need an accommodation. You would do it for anyone else, right? So that's like the big theme of the whole. Remember in the beginning, I said, I care more about how you feel about putting these boundaries forward and asking for things more than I do like the actual dialogue. So I don't want you to feel like you deserve a whole group of people who wouldn't give a shit if you didn't eat anything the whole night. What's the point? You know, going out to eat is expensive. Like what? So anyway, so that's one way before I tangent. Anyway. But a simple way to ask, hey, any way we can pick a place with more options for me to eat. That's it. You don't have to be like, I know you really want to go there, but I'm so sorry. I can't have the gluten and then oh my, like, I don't mean to be offensive, but just to show for dramatic flair. That's how sometimes I feel like we want to be. And the other person's just like, spit it out already. What do you need? You know? And can we pick a place with more options? Okay. You know? So then if it is, like I said, it's Wolfgang Puck provided meal, it's a different scenario. And like, you know, maybe you eat before you go and like, you know, or maybe you just deal with the tummy ache. I think honestly, I would deal with the tummy ache. I would maybe feel a little shitty for like a Top Chef provided experience, but I don't think any of us are really experiencing too many of those these days. So if you are, I'm jealous. Um, including in cooking. This is a big one because so many people don't realize that a lot of the guys cook too, which is kind of like a really weird thing that that's such a shock, but somehow it is. And I think that a lot of people assume that if their partner is cooking, that they, I mean, I guess that's whatever, it's genderless. If their partner is cooking, they feel like a pain in the ass asking them to cook something different or to tweak it for their dietary needs. They're like, I don't want it to be their responsibility. I have to learn for them to learn what I can eat. Why not? Wouldn't you want to know what your partner could eat? Like, wouldn't you not like, again, if Nick had his heart set on something that he knew, like if I ate it, I was going to have symptoms or it was going to hold me back from getting my results or whatever, right? He would make sure that like I had my own thing and his, he could enjoy whatever he had, but he would make sure that I also had my own options too. And it wouldn't be like, oh God, I got to make a separate dish for her. Like if that's the case, let's talk different, like one-on-one about more of that. But I don't think the majority of people's partners are necessarily going to be like that. They're probably just gonna be like, okay, tell me what I need to tweak about the meal. And I feel like a lot of people just think if they're taking responsibility for the food at the end of my day, I don't have to make any decisions. This is really helpful. I don't want to seem ungrateful. They work hard too. These are all great things. But again, I'm encouraging you to remember how you describe feeling like shit. And also that you're not asking them to like, cut off an arm and give it to you. Like you're asking them to like maybe have a side dish that you like maybe make some palmini in the pan. It takes 5 minutes. So the way that I would ask about that would be first, like I said, tell them, say, hey, I'm working on a different baby step with my coach, or with Michelle or whatever. And so for dinner, I want to try take the guesswork out of it. You might feel bad being so direct about what it is you need, but if you're vague, it becomes more of a chore. And I don't know if that's helpful. If you are vague, it becomes more of a chore because you might think I'm not being particular, I'm being open-ended, so I'm being easygoing. To them, they're like, what the fuck am I doing? Like they have too many, they have to think more then. So be specific. I'm working on a baby step, so I want to replace pasta in our dinner meals, at least for me. So when we make pasta, can you make? I'll make sure we have palmini. Can you have just do a thing of palmini for me? We're really, we're working on doing something, so I'm replacing the rice. Or hey, I'm having issues with this is one I did this week with someone. I'm having issues grabbing food and bringing it with me the next day for lunch. Can you put the extras in a little Tupperware for me? Ask for help. It's okay. What does that take? It takes putting it in a Tupperware. Like it's not the end of the world to ask that. It's not the end of the world to just say, can you do this? Or maybe you're in charge of your own side, even if they are cooking. If they're excited about a recipe, a lot more people, I mean, this time of year, a lot more people are trying to like, I get summer season, right? So I've seen an uptick in people cooking together even. So let's say the partner will come home with like a recipe that they're excited to try and it is low carb. It meets certain like ones of their baby step, but it's not gluten free. And that's one of their baby steps. And they'll be worried to ask for that additional change in the meal. Does that happen to anyone? And really it's just thinking and saying, oh, well, that has gluten in it. So can you make me a side of blah, blah, blah. It's not hard. It's just something that you want to, like the easier going you feel about it, the easier going it is. I don't know if that was helpful for anyone else realizing that vagueness is more of a chore. Especially if you've ever been criticized for being controlling or picky or micromanaging or anything like that, it can feel like you have to be vague. You don't want to be too needy, but like people like parameters. All right, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. I don't tell anyone about food. I approach it as I have some food allergies. What's the menu? Definitely, we'll get to that. Had some Michelin star meals, 100% worth the stomach ache. Also, not enough food to drag on. Yeah, no. That's the other thing. I feel like I would leave and go get a burger too. But there are definitely some like omakase meals that I would want to go to. When I go to Greece next, I really want to go to a Greek Michelin restaurant and like that's going to be a worth it meal. Like I'm going to stay close to a toilet the next day and I'm going to go. I'm going to do it. It is, what I've never had diarrhea in my life. I can't afford to have diarrhea again for a good meal. It is what it is. So anyway, just no filter anymore. I get embarrassed to ask for any substitutes or like asking for non-alcoholic drinks. That's a big one. Okay. So, oh my God, I feel like I could do a whole Zoom on that. Okay. When it comes to substitutes, this is highly controversial, right? Because you have some kitchens, some chefs, some staff that are like, absolutely, we want you to enjoy the meal that you're having. I have had clients whose partners are chefs, and like I've said to her, I'm like, are you nervous about asking for substitutions? And she's like, no, my chef ain't like that. They want you to enjoy your meal. Okay. That being said, there are many people who are not like that and that frown upon any kind of substitutions. Just remember though, you're not doing it just to be an a-hole. Like you're not doing it just to make them do extra work, So, and also the way you ask for it helps tremendously. Again, not being vague. So if you're not celiac, and I have many clients in here who are, but if you're not celiac, you just aren't trying to eat gluten, let's say. I'm just using gluten as like the one substitution I find people might get annoyed about, right? So let's just say you're trying to avoid eating flour and wheat. That's what you're basically avoiding. So you want to ask for the, I'm really stretching. You're asking for can you make the veal scallopini without flour? That is specific. That is, hey, asking your server, can the veal scallopini be made without flour? They're going to go back, ask the kitchen. The kitchen's going to then have the ability to come back and tell you yes or no. And you don't have to be super apologetic. You can just say, you're like, I can't have wheat. I can't have flour. Even if you want to avoid the G word, gluten, right? I can't have flour. And people usually don't pry beyond that. It's really annoying because a lot of people don't believe gluten's a thing, whatever. So be specific in your question. Look up the menu before you go. Have some idea. Text with me if you want to come up with a game plan. But as long as you're polite about it, you try to be specific in what you're asking for. Like, please leave off the extra croutons. Stuff like that. Can I have it in a cup instead of a cone? Like things like that. You can be specific in those extras, in those extra needs. When it comes to non-alcoholic drinks, have a specific drink you want. There will be some bars and places that's really fun. Like I've been to them where you can say, I'm alcohol free. Can you make me a fun drink? And I can't have, personally, I'm like, I am allergic to pineapple. And then so I've had really cool drinks made that way, like really cool mocktails. Sometimes they're really up for it if it's a cool kind of place. If it's like super busy and you can tell they have like a service bar at the end that's like flooded, don't do that. Ask for a specific mocktail in mind. Or I've brought like Crystal Light packets out to places and just asked for seltzer, and made my own little like soda at the counter. But again, specific. Specific is easier. It's always easier. Even if you feel like you're being a pain, it's better. Specificity does help and it totally makes more sense. Woo, okay. I did leave and get a burger. Yeah. Yeah, I never understood that about fancy places. I worked in some as a pastry chef, and I was always like, these people are paying how much for a spoonful of weird chocolate ice cream and like a wafer cookie with a schmear? But I get it now that I'm older. Like, I'm like, it's the fine dining. But I left and ate a burger. 100% would be me. Okay, so where am I in these notes? When it comes to having food accommodations, remember the spectrum, right? So you have the people you don't want to include in your journey. You're telling them, I just need these accommodations. But let's say it's someone that you just don't want to ask for accommodations. It's an obligation to have to encounter them or whatever. You can prepare for yourself, right? So you can say, you can bring your own. You can bring some for everybody, quote unquote. So like potluck style, like, hey, I made some blah, blah, blah. Anybody want any? And then you just eat from it too. And just not even bring it up. So you just take care of it on your own end. That's one. Next step, let's say someone is asking you if you can eat whatever is happening, you can say, hey, I don't eat blah, 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 but I can bring my own. You always give them the out. I can totally bring my own. Or if you have any questions or you need me to send you a list of like, safe foods or whatever, I can help you in any way if you want, but I totally understand and I can bring my own. I don't need any accommodation if it's someone you don't feel comfortable having that accommodation with, right? So that's one thing to prepare beforehand. Oh my God, I'm losing my voice. What about if someone provides you with something? They've already made it for you. It's like they're standing there, they got the fork. They're like, here, eat it. I made it. That looks amazing. I can't eat blah, blah, blah. But that does look so good. And I'm so appreciative of the thought. There's a couple ways this can go. One, they might go the route of feeling, but oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. And then you can be like, that's okay. No, no problem. Like, I would love to try it. It looks great. You make it a nice situation. That's pretty common. The other way is you get someone who's like, a bite won't kill you. Has that ever happened to anyone here? It sure has for me. A bite's not going to kill you. And you could be like, guys, I don't know if I'm the right one to answer this because if someone faces me with that, I'm from the tri-state area. I'm going to respond with it won't kill me, but I'll blow up your bathroom. Even though I won't, I'll be sick the next day. But for theatrics, if you're going to force me into a corner of eating something and watch me eat to make sure I like it, I'm going to tell you I'm going to blow up your bathroom. And no, it won't kill me, but it won't be fun either. Because someone's going to be weird like that and not take your boundaries seriously. I make it weird too. I match energies. Okay, but let's say you're not like that and you would be embarrassed, right? A good response could be, I don't want to offend you. I just would be ill if I ate it. But it looks really, really good. I don't want to offend you. I would just be ill if I ate it. It looks really good. What are they going to say? Get sick anyway? And if they do, don't take health advice from them. Still don't eat it. They probably didn't like wash their hands. So anyway, see anything else in here? Okay. So that looks delicious. I can't eat or I don't eat, whatever verbiage you feel more comfortable with, blah, blah, blah. But that looks so good. If someone's asking you beforehand, like let's say someone's hosting you or whatever, hey, I can't eat blah, 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 but I can bring my own, or I can answer any questions if you have any, or want to ask about any ingredients or anything like that. It's more than what you say. It's how you feel and how you say it. That is your energy, and how you say it is the top. Okay. I'm trying to see if I have any other scenarios in here. Oh, here's one. Anybody ever have an issue with needing groceries that are more expensive than your average groceries? And maybe whoever you're asking for this, whether it's your family, whether, it's your partner, whatever, maybe they wouldn't care if you spent a couple more dollars on a loaf of bread that meets your baby steps, but you feel bad asking because our food tends to be a little pricier. So if that's the case, I think the big thing, what did I write here? Is to remember it's okay to figure this out together. It's okay to find accessible options for you, right? And if your partner really, really, if you're on a really tight budget, if let's say, you and your partner live together, you're on a tight budget, why buy the bread that you can have and the two of you can eat it together. You're not eating some decrepit piece of cardboard crap that like you cry eating. Like you enjoy it, right? So like why would it be hell for your partner to eat that too? And instead of having to buy two loaves, if they can't eat the kind of bread that you can eat without having issues and controlling your blood sugars or whatever your goal is in eating that bread, then you can find a way, they can find a way to budget out the couple extra bucks to go buy themselves a different loaf. But at the end of the day, you're not doing this to be an asshole. You're doing this because you would rather be healthy and eat the same things but that's just not in the cards. So I'm going to drill that home. Okay. Did I miss anything else here? Always remember, if you have good friends in your life, if you have a good partner in your life, if you have family that's looking out for you, that your results and you feeling best and you getting to a point in your health of feeling like it's not going to progress and get worse, that benefits the people who love you as well. Because if they love you, they want you healthy. And that doesn't make you a burden, So I hope that helped you. I hope this whole helped you feel better. So like I said, this is going to be more one-on-one coaching. I don't expect you to hear what I said here and feel confident telling the world. I want you to bring the stuff up that we addressed here. Tell me on our next call, like your situation. We will make it apply. And I promise you there are ways to feel really good about communicating your needs. You are not a pest, but you also shouldn't exclude them at your own detriment. All right. So last thing, next week is the last week of the month. So we're going to have another one of our group trainings. It's going to be lymphatic drainage massage. So I would like for you guys to have your cameras off and I would like for it to be more interactive. If you want to attend, I want to do this because I think this mattered from last time. If you want to attend and you're still anxious about being on camera or being unmuted, just let me know ahead of time. I won't call on you. I won't drag you in. You can still attend and watch. It's totally fine. But I do want to encourage people to be more interactive if you are comfortable doing that. So next week would be the one. Don't forget a mocktail. That's our opener on these. So we're all going to go around and talk about what mocktails we have. And then we'll get into lymphatic drainage and have I have a theme for discussion picked out for us. So I'm excited. Our second one. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, guys. Take care. Love yous. Bye.